chose another way, there would be a whole other set of people that aren't going to be happy. So I think this is probably the best of both worlds, where if you decide that you're not comfortable, then wear your mask. And I think that's the only thing we can do at that point.
Are you hearing within the market that most people are going to do that? They're going to be doing optional. Have you heard of anybody that might be continuing to implement mask requirements?
We've had a couple conversations, and I think some, most have indicated that they're probably going to do the same, and may be a little bit different in the pharmacies because it's a medical a field, and you expect to have sick people visit the pharmacy, and they may continue to wear their masks. They may have continued to wear their masks anyways. They know where they're working and they know who they see. So I wouldn't doubt it if the pharmacist just naturally chose to option to wear a mask.
And that's your early evening newscast. I'm Gray Miners with Bermuda Broadcasting News.
And the weather brought to you by BF&M.
Does your to-do list seem to be getting longer and longer? Are you looking for ways to save time? With BF&M, you can. At bfm.bm, you can shop for home, motor, marine, or travel insurance, and you can buy, pay, or renew your insurance online too. Need to pay in installments? With BF&M, you can, even for motor insurance. If you have questions, our live chat agents are available during business hours to assist you, so you can do everything online and save time. That's insurance made easy with BF&M. Visit us online today at bfm.bm.
This weather update is provided by the Bermuda Weather Service, sponsored by BF&M.
All right, thank you, Gray. Weather-wise for tonight, mostly clear. Looks pretty good out there. Winds out of the south to southeast for this evening. Tonight's low 64 degrees. Partly cloudy for Friday. Southwesterly winds again. High 73 and low 68 degrees. Well, for the weekend, rain and showers developing for Saturday. And, of course, going to be easing later on for Saturday night with a high then 71 degrees to low 64. Sunday, early sunshine, thickening clouds with wet spells developing for Sunday. Sunday's high, 69 degrees to low 63. Next week, Monday, generally going to be fair skies with a risk of showers too. 1 or 2 showers for Monday. Monday's high, 69, low at 63 degrees. Relative humidity, real nice, 53%.
This weather update was provided by the Bermuda Weather Service, sponsored by BF&M.
Thanks to the folks at BF&M and the Bermuda Weather Service.
94.9 Bermuda. Hour 95.
And it is now time for motion to adjourn with MP Chris Famous and Dwayne Robinson.
Day Bermuda, how are you all today? We are honored to have our guest today, who is the Opposition Shadow Minister of Legal Affairs, the Honorable Scott Pierman, here to discuss the process of an opposition bill and one of the bills that the current opposition is planning to bring to the House of Assembly. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. It's nice to be here.
Yes, and I mean, just a full disclaimer, obviously I'm very proud of my colleagues and their work to bring this sort of legislation to fruition. But before we get to that, would you mind running through just the process to get to bringing a bill forward from the opposition?
Absolutely, because, you know, a lot of people out there, they just look and they see politics and they see politicians, and we all go up to the House of Assembly and they read in the paper or they hear on the radio what's happened, but they don't necessarily understand the process, right? Mm-hmm. And the process is that somebody elects the government, you know, and the government has a legislative agenda. That means they want to pass certain bills and make them law, or they want to change certain existing laws. And so what Parliament does is Parliament reviews what the government produces. So government says this is the legislative agenda we want, and Parliament, which can be the opposition, can be the backbench of the governing party as well. They look at what the bills are that are coming through and they review them, and they can amend them. What's not necessarily appreciated is that not all the bills have to come from the governing party. So right now we have a PLP government. Currently we have a PLP government. Not
Yes.
for long, I hope. But that's where we are. And, so they're producing most of the legislative bills that come to the House. But as you say, most people don't appreciate that the opposition has the right to produce bills as well. Obviously, it's a lot harder for the opposition to produce bills because we don't have all the tools and levers of government, right? We don't have an attorneys general chambers with lots of lawyers sitting there ready to write bills. So if we're going to do a bill, we have to sit down, we have to figure it out ourselves, we have to pull all the information together, and someone, in this particular case me, has to sit down and type up the bill. And so, it is a great opportunity because what it allows us to do is to try to help to shape Bermuda's laws and make better laws for Bermudian people. And so we as an opposition now are trying to bring some laws forward. At the moment, we have 3 bills that we are looking at. We have one that has been tabled in the House, the one we're going to talk about a little bit later. So that's the ability. The opposition has an ability to bring a bill. As I say, not a lot of people realize that. It hasn't been done a lot in the past in Bermuda. Probably happens more in other jurisdictions. In addition, though, there is a restriction, and it's important, and that is the opposition is not allowed to bring a bill that would be a money bill. Now, what do I mean by a money bill? A money bill is a bill that would compel the government to spend money to do something. So the opposition's not allowed to put a bill down in the House that says, government, you must spend money doing something. So we can only introduce a bill that's on a legislative area where there isn't a requirement for expenditure. So that's our restriction. We haven't seen opposition bills for quite some time. I'm not aware. I think there was one opposition bill when the PLP was in the opposition back in the 90s. I may be wrong about that. Perhaps they did put a bill in when the OBA was the government between 2012 and 2017, but I'm not sure. And this is the first time that we as an opposition are putting a bill forward, and we have tabled the Equality Bill, the Equality Act, hopefully the Equality Act 2021, if it passes the House and the Senate and gets the governor's sign-off.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. And I know that, unfortunately, my co-host could not join us. So
we're missing him tonight.
Yes. So I'm gonna push back a little bit.
Yeah.
And,
you're gonna play the role of Chris Famous.
I want to feel him here in spirit,
Yeah.
So
MP Famous could call in, right? I mean, we're here. If he knows the number, if he wants to give us a call, he could.
He could.
Well,
I know his indisposed currently, but he may be able to pull away if necessary. But what I will ask is, a lot of people look at the opposition as more of a bunch of finger pointers. We criticize, and I say we because obviously I joined that troop. That we criticize and we don't always bring forward solutions. So in this vein, how would you respond to that sort of
the
statement?
Quote. You remember the quote, right? The opposition has its say and the government gets its way. But look, it's the job of the opposition to scrutinize the government's agenda. So, when we point a finger, well, really, that's what we're being paid to do. That doesn't mean we should oppose for the sake of it. And perhaps opposition is not a good word, right? Maybe it should just be the other party. But it is our job to look at what the government's doing and draw to the attention of the Bermudian people where we think they're going wrong. Particularly and specifically, it's our job to do that in relation to bills. I noticed that your co-host, MP Famous, he was writing an article pretty recently, and he observed that Jerian Richardson MP and I often spend a lot of time in the House talking on the bills themselves and not a lot of time talking in the motion to adjourn at the end of the evening. Well, I would respond, well, that's what my job is, right? My job is to review these bills, see if there are any problems with them, see if they're good for the Bermudian people or they're not, and to try to raise concerns and put red flags up. Now, because the opposition is currently quite small, we're less able to really perform that function as well as we would like to. But nonetheless, it's our duty and obligation as elected officials, as elected MPs, to go into the House, to scrutinize the legislation, to raise concerns. And I appreciate that sometimes that does look like finger pointing. It's not the job of the opposition to oppose for the sake of it. I always like to try to offer constructive criticism. I'd like to say, well, this is a good thing about the bill. This is where it may help. But these are some bad things about the bill, and this is where it should be changed. I'm sad to say that I don't see a lot of that happening in Bermuda. Like where people point out flaws with the bills, people don't tend to change them. A great example of that was Andrew Simons, a former senator for the OBA. He pointed out how this change in the 24th of May holiday meant the holiday would never ever fall on May 24.
Yes,
and he said it. He was right. He was ignored. And later on, of course, there were changes to the date of the holiday. But I mean, it's an example where, just because someone from the other side's making the point doesn't mean they're not right. They might be right. We need to listen to all ideas and see if we can get creative solutions that we can all work together on. I mean, that should be the goal, right?
No, I agree. Just circling back to the bill now, as far as moving into the process of it, what would you consider to be one of the main hindrances to, I know you mentioned not having resources, but what would you consider one of the main hindrances to an opposition bringing forward a bill, especially one with slightly diminished numbers?
Right. Well, I mean, someone has to do the work. I mean, that's not a problem because that's what we're there to do, right? But oftentimes, the law is complicated. So, for example, the bill we're going to talk about today, the equality bill, it's a short bill. It's only 6 pages. I'd encourage anyone listening who's interested in the bill to take a look. It's on the Parliament website, www.parliament.bm, and there's the equality bill. You can take a look at it and see what it's about. So this is a relatively short bill. It's only got 5 parts. It's doing 5 things. It's over 6 pages. But this took a lot of work, right? Because these are difficult legal concepts, and I'm a lawyer, but not everybody in our party is. In fact, none of the current MPs are lawyers at the moment. So, for example, one of the aspects of this bill is to create in our law a presumption of equality, right? Now, you have to figure out how you're going to draft that. So for this bill, for example, I went and looked at some Scandinavian law on presumptions of equality, and that takes a lot of time and effort. So that's not a complaint; it's just an explanation as to how much time and effort it does take to put these things together. So, I'm pleased to see the opposition bringing some bills. We're bringing this one. We also have a bill for the reduction and elimination of single-use plastics. We provided that to the government as part of their consultation. And there's a fraud bill coming down the pipeline, which hopefully will make sure that Bermuda is consistent with international best practice.
Wow. I just really, really feel a sense of pride, obviously, because it's good to see that, the opposition is taking it upon itself. And I think that's what, this show was formed on. That's what a lot of Bermudians are looking for, is that collaborative effort of not just pointing fingers, but also saying, hey, we can clear some of these gaps. We may not be able to just shoot bills out willy-nilly because it takes a lot of time, but here we are as the opposition saying, hey, we're bringing this forward. So what was the kind of brain process for you to arrive and colleagues to arrive at this particular bill? And, feel free to give a synopsis of the bill now that we've moved to that point.
Yeah, sure. The background to this particular bill was around 2 parts. It was firstly, I was part of a discussion that was lamenting the fact that there is still an inequality in the workforce between men and women, right? So that was actually where initially the sort of kernel of the idea started. Well, how could our laws in Bermuda be improved for gender equality? And then, of course, we had the Black Lives Matter movement. We had the Black Lives March. And, I was thinking to myself, well, really, why limit this focus to gender equality? It should be equality for all. It should be racial equality as well. Equality in terms of disability, for example, age, et cetera. And so that was kind of the where this started. And so I started to take a look at the existing discrimination laws and human rights laws in Bermuda, and I was looking for gaps. What could we do that makes our laws better, that helps to try to address the obvious inequality, the historic problems that we've had on our island, and to make things more fair, particularly in the workplace. So if you stop for a second, people don't necessarily connect discrimination and the law and how those interplay. But the reality is, in a lot of other countries, a lot of the discrimination laws are interrelated to the workplace, right? Employment law is a lot about discrimination because that's where a lot of people are discriminated against. You might not be promoted, right? Someone else gets promoted. Maybe they're non-Bermudian. Maybe the Bermudian doesn't get promoted. Another example, a man gets promoted and a woman doesn't. So there are certain examples there which cry out for remedy and relief and legislative justice. And so, that's one of the things that this bill is looking at. Let me take you through it, because it really isn't very complicated. It has 5 core ideas. None of them, I hope, would be objectionable to anybody, but we'll see.
Yeah.
The first one is effectively having a presumption of equality in our law, so that when you come to look at any law on this island, you effectively interpret that law. The courts will interpret that law, seeking to promote equality wherever possible. So, you look at examples of the workplace being one. It won't be proper to discriminate, and so it is a presumption of equality in our law, and that builds upon existing law, but it also creates a fundamental, solid judicial principle of justice, of equality, which I think is a good thing, and it should be restated, and it's a tool that courts and claimants can use to try to make sure that the wrongs are righted. Secondly, because of the fact that discrimination so often is linked to employment in the workplace, when people have complaints, employment complaints, they often would go down to the employment tribunal. What they don't know is that discrimination claims, by and large, can't be heard in the employment tribunal. There is a separate human rights commission and a human rights tribunal, which is over here. But if you've lost your job, or you feel that if you're a woman and you feel a man's been promoted ahead of you, and you want to bring an employment tribunal claim, you're not going to stop to think whether or not you can bring that claim in the employment tribunal. You would logically think, hey, it's an employment matter. I'm going to go complain. I'm going to go down to the employment tribunal. 3, 4, 5 months later, finally you get in front of the tribunal and they say, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, this is a discrimination claim. You can't be here. You've got to be over at the human rights tribunal. I mean, that doesn't make sense, right? It's about access to justice, and you've got to make access to justice easy for everyone, because otherwise wrongs aren't addressed and they're not corrected. So the second thing that this bill does is it allows for discrimination claims to be brought in the employment tribunal. It's a very simple solution, right? Not just the human rights tribunal where you can bring them at the moment, but also in the employment tribunal. So it's greater access to justice. So that's 2. The other 3 things are these. One of the problems with existing law, as I saw it, discrimination law, is that it was really limited to compensation. It was compensatory, right? You feel you've been discriminated against, you successfully claim, here's some compensation for your injury to your feelings, effectively. That's not necessarily punitive. That's not necessarily going to change society. It might compensate you, and it's never really going to make you whole, because it's only money, right? Money's not going to solve all the problems. You need to change the way people think. And in order to change the way people think, you want to have civil penalties. You want to have a punitive reaction. And so this bill is going to give teeth to the remedies and penalties for discrimination. And it's going to do that by allowing for a fine against the employer in circumstances where the discrimination occurred. So that will make people sit up, and they'll make sure that they deploy the correct policies and the correct procedures, and they do their best to change the culture and the mindset in the workplace. Because that's what needs to change, right? I mean, it's not just the individual case. The individual case may be very important, may be very personal to the individual, but we need to change the societal mindset. And to do that, you have to have some real teeth. So there will be fixed penalties that can be levied against the workplace employers themselves. And those are on a sliding scale based on size. And what that will do is that money from the fixed penalties, from the civil penalties, will actually go to the Human Rights Commission. And that's the fourth part about the bill, is that there's going to be a new Equality Council at the Human Rights Commission. And this Equality Council will be responsible for the promotion of equality. They're going to be promoting and advocating for policies and procedures in the Bermuda workforce and workplace that will better allow for promotion of equality. And so it's not so much as a watchdog as an advocate, but they have a further power, which I'll come to in a minute when I get to the last bit. And the last bit is the fifth and final element of the bill. And what that seeks to do is it seeks to have equality on public boards, right? Public boards and quangos. It's 2022. Why shouldn't a board have equal representation of men and women on it? I mean, it should, right? I mean, why shouldn't an island where we have roughly getting closer to half actually now, black and white, why shouldn't we have equal racial representation on a board? Now, this part is aspirational. It's not mandatory. It's aspirational, right? It's something to work towards. But again, it's only going to have real effect if you have some teeth. So the teeth here is kind of, I think it's a kind of an interesting idea. The idea here is that the Equality Council will be able to ask a decision maker, probably a minister, but not necessarily.
Right.
Why is it that this board you have here isn't equal representation of, let's take men and women? Why isn't this board equal representation of men and women? And the minister may write back, well, I did ask 10 women to sit on the board, but I couldn't get them to sit on the board. And that may be a perfectly legitimate answer. It may or may not. So it gives the Equality Council the ability to ask the person who appointed the board why the board isn't equal. So again, it's aspirational as opposed to mandatory. It's not compelling that. It's just, it has teeth, but it's a goal. And I think, as I say, it's 2022. Why shouldn't we strive for equality on our boards? I think it's an idea well past its time, some might say.
No, I agree.
So those are the 5 things the bill's seeking to do: to introduce an equality principle into our law, to allow for claims to be brought to the Employment Tribunal in addition to the Human Rights Tribunal, to give real teeth to the remedies and the penalties so that the law actually matters and is paid attention to. To have this Equality Council at the Human Rights Commission that's going to have an advocacy role to try and work with major employers and minor employers to try to have greater equality in the workforce. And finally, an aspirational goal of equality on our boards, our government boards, public boards, and Quangos. And I should say it is public boards, not private boards. Again, we're looking at something in the public sector where it should be reflective of those characteristics. So that's what's in store.
Okay. I think that's a really, really succinct synopsis. So on that, I think we better take what do you think, Don? Yeah. We will take a break and then we return with MP Scott Pyramid. Thank you.
Earn up to $100,000 in scholarship funds to further your education. Belco offers a 4-year engineering scholarship, a 1-year postgraduate business and finance scholarship, and a 1-year postgraduate environmental studies, sustainability and development scholarship, with opportunities for employment after graduation. Belco also provides STEM education awards of up to $20,000. All applications are due by April 30th. To learn more, visit belco.bm/scholarships.
Spring forward at Willowbank. Check out our spring special. Enjoy a beautiful oceanfront room with balcony and sunset views. For only $175 plus taxes, we also offer breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Book today by calling 234-1616 or email reservations@willowbank.bm. Spring forward with Willowbank.
Now back to Motion to Adjourn with MP Chris Famous and Dwayne Robinson.
And welcome back to Motion to Adjourn. And right now we are speaking to MP Scott Pyramid. So, Mr. Pyramid, what do you think the mood is about this bill on the other side? Do you think that it will receive support from the Progressive Labor Party?
So that's a really interesting question, Dwayne. I think, or I should say Mr. Robinson, since you called me Mr. Pyramid. There we go. I think it's a really interesting question because, one would like to think that a bill like this, which really appeals to principles, but which we can all get behind together, would find support with the government. I think it will find some support. Unfortunately, one minister, I won't call his name out, but he said that this was sort of a ploy or a window dressing. I can't remember his exact phraseology, but he was very dismissive of it. And I think that's a shame, right? I mean, I'm going to get a little off topic for a second, but on Friday of was it last week or was it the week before? Time's flying. But former finance minister Curtis Dickinson made a statement in the House, and I'm not going to go into his statement, but at the very end of it, he took an opportunity to make some observations about how we can do better as politicians and how the political system can be fixed. And it really resonated with me. What he had to say was, look, there's no point picking up stones and throwing them at each other because, all we do is get hit in the head with a stone. That's right. Or our arm gets tired throwing them. We need to work together. That's not to say that we're always going to agree on what the solution is. But usually we can agree on what the problem is, right? Like if say I was here with MP Famous, he's not here today, sadly, but say MP Famous was here, if he and I were put in separate rooms and asked to write down the top 10 problems facing Bermuda and then come and compare lists. I have a sneaking suspicion that 6, 7, 8 of his top 10 problems and 6, 7, 8 of my top 10 problems would be the same problems, right? Because we look around our island, and we're a small island, but we have big problems, man. I mean, there's some serious problems out there. And some of those problems are solvable. They're solvable because of our size, and they're solvable because we could, really tackle them. And my belief, and people have called me naive for this, and fair enough, it's criticism, but my belief is that if we were all to work together to solve these problems, we might not solve all of them. We might disagree on the solutions of some of them, but we might get some resolved, right? We might go from 10 down to 6 or 10 down to 5, and that's a good thing, right? So, I'm very hopeful that the government, and particularly the backbench of the PLP, will support this bill, and we'll see what happens when the vote comes.
Well, thank you. And I guess we're both naive too, because, that's the inception of this show, both sides working together to bring forth some information. But on that note, we'll go to a news break, and we'll come right back with MP Scott Pierman.
Thanks.
You're locked to Power 95, Bermuda's big station, at 94.9 FM, a Bermuda Broadcasting Company station.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Gray Miners with your top stories to the hour, brought to you by Butterfield.
Take control of your Butterfield credit card by downloading the Butterfield Card Alerts app. Monitor your spending activity with real-time transaction alerts sent directly to your mobile device. And if your card is lost or stolen, use the app to turn the card off, preventing any further transactions from being processed. Download the app from the Apple Store or Google Play Store today. Customized credit card controls. This is banking by Butterfield. The Bank of N.T. Butterfield & Son Limited is licensed to conduct banking business by the Bermuda Monetary Authority.
The rate of electricity cost is set to rise for the average residential customer from 44 cents to 49 cents per kilowatt starting tomorrow. They explained that fuel is the largest segment of that rate, which has increased from approximately 11 cents at the end of March to approximately 14 cents beginning April 1st. Bills after April 1st will also include an RA fee of 1 cent per kilowatt, which will not change. However, in 2021, Belco deferred the collection of revenue over 5 years, with recovery starting this year. Renee Ming, the National Security Minister, says she's resigned from her ministry after the Premier David Burt claimed to ask the governor to revoke her appointment. Last night, Premier Burt said, quote, "I met with MP Ming today and informed her of my decision and to thank her for her service. I would like to thank MP Ming for her service in Cabinet. I'm sure she will continue to be a forceful voice for her constituents as she continues her service in the House of Assembly." However, Ms. Ming telling media she chose to resign from the cabinet. Wayne L. Ferbert has been appointed acting minister while a replacement is found. This comes just over a month after Curtis Dickinson, the former finance minister, resigned from the national security position on principle regarding the Fairmont-Southampton proposed agreement. And those were your top stories to the hour, brought to you by Butterfield.
Now back to Motion to Adjourn with MP Chris Famous and Dwayne Robinson.
And welcome back to Motion to Adjourn. So now we can just discuss a bit about the process. Now that you've tabled the bill and it's been accepted by the Speaker, what happens next?
So, process is interesting. The Parliament has been around for a long time, right? And we have the Westminster system, which comes from the UK. And there are really long, time-worn, long-standing, entrenched processes and procedures as to how these things work. And it can be quite complicated, And I only joined as a new member in 2018. Curtis Dickinson and I were elected in dual by-elections on the same day in June. And so, it's pretty frightening, right? Because you've just been elected. The very next day, we are ushered into. We've been up all night waiting for the count, right?
That's right.
And I'm exhausted. And the very next day, we're ushered into the House to swear the oath and to be put down in chairs. In fact, we were sitting right next to each other because we're the two new kids, I guess. They wanted to keep the new kids in the corner where they could keep an eye on them. And you have to sort of learn the way of the House, the way the House works, the rules. I mean, you know, from the Senate, it's the same thing. They have a book called the Standing Orders, and it's 20, 30, 40 pages long, and it's got all the rules. And then there's a legal text called Erskine May, which basically explains how you understand the standing orders. And that thing's like 600 pages long.
Yep.
I mean, it's big, right? And you know, it's an interesting system. I mean, the speaker is there to kind of keep us all in control. And there is a lot of back and forth. It's funny because we talk about debates, but the way that these things happen, it's not really like a back and forth. Like you and I are having a conversation here today. You know, you say something, I say something, we're back and forth. I'm actually speaking more than you are, but that's not unusual for me.
Yeah.
You know, what usually happens is someone speaks, and then someone speaks in response to that, and then someone speaks in response to that. But back to the point on the bills, we have an order paper, just like you have an order paper in the Senate, and that sets out a series of categories of things that will be dealt with by the House during the course of the day. And each of those categories is there on the order paper. Most of those categories never actually crop up, right? You know from the same thing.
That's right.
The documents may be 2 or 3 pages long, and it's got some of these arcane categories that you never deal with. So, for example, right there, opposition bills. Well, we haven't been dealing with that one for a long time before now.
Yes.
Right? And then, of course, we have congrats and obits, where you have an opportunity, everyone has an opportunity to speak for 3 minutes and either say something very nice about somebody who's done something wonderful or commiserate the departure of someone who's recently died or something like that. And then you have the legislative debates where you debate the bills. And then, of course, at the very end, once the work of the day is done, you have the motion to adjourn. And that, depending on how you look at it, I know MP Famous is a big fan of the motion to adjourn. It's pretty much only time he speaks in the House is during the motion to adjourn. And he usually speaks in every motion to adjourn. It's really his thing. And it's the name of your show, right?
Correct.
There are other MPs who never speak in the motion to adjourn. You know, they view it as a sort of unnecessary afterthought where things perhaps get a little bit silly, right? For example, I think the finance minister said during his statement, when he made a statement to the House last week or the week before, he said, I've never spoken to the motion to adjourn. And I thought about it, and I don't remember him doing so. And I seldom speak in the motion to adjourn because I sort of view our job there to be to look at legislation and deal with the legislation. And once you've done that for a whole day, and it's now 11 o'clock at night or 12 o'clock at night or whatever time it is, I'm not necessarily too excited to then spout off about something for 30 minutes or 20 minutes at whatever time of night it is. So, but back to the process. Excuse me. So we had to seek, of course, the Speaker's permission to table an opposition bill. He had to be satisfied, as we talked about earlier in your show, that it wasn't a money bill, that it wasn't a bill that would require expenditure by the government. And there are a couple of other rules you have to satisfy. But he agreed to allow us to table it, and we did table it. And then it sits on the order paper. And it's up to us, or indeed, if it's a government bill, it's up to the government when you bring the bill forward. So right now, if you were to go on the parliamentary website, which was www.parliament.bm, and you were to print out an order paper from our most recent sitting, you would actually see that there's quite a few bills on there. I don't know at the moment. I think it's probably 6, maybe 8 bills that are on there. Those won't necessarily be picked up immediately. They can sit on the order paper until someone picks them up. And sometimes they sit on the order paper for an entire parliamentary session, and they're never picked up. And then at the end of the parliamentary session, if a bill hasn't been picked up and dealt with, even if it's on the order paper, it just falls off the order paper. And then the question is, does it get retabled in the next parliamentary session? So that's the procedure. And we tabled the bill, and we were hopeful to get to it before the budget. In the end, we didn't. For those less familiar, the budget's probably the busiest season for parliamentarians. It takes about 4 weeks. You have the budget response from the Premier or from the Minister of Finance, and then you have the budget reply from the opposition. And then you have 2 or 3 weeks of debate where each ministry comes up for a budget debate on the particular expenditure and revenues for that particular ministry. And I mean, you know the deal. I think it's 56 hours in total.
Yeah,
it's actually quite grueling. And it goes for a long time. And then, of course, the same debate goes on in the Senate afterwards. And the Senate just finished yesterday. I think they finished the budget debate on Monday. And then yesterday they met for the cannabis bill and a couple of other bills, one involving energy and one involving communications, electronic communications. So, that's the process. We decided that we would not try to bring this bill up during the budget debate because the budget debate really was the focus of the island. The numbers are important. How much the government's spending or overspending is important, right?
Yes.
And how much money the government might be bringing in revenue is important as well. So we're going to pick this bill up in May. And, excuse me. And so I'm, again, as we said earlier, very hopeful that we will get sufficient support from 36 MPs to pass the bill because I think it's a good bill. And I'm hopeful that we will get support from more than just the 6 OBA MPs and the 3 OBA senators when it gets to the Senate.
Correct. And I mean, obviously, we have some deviations from, the process you've spoken to because, as we know, Senate gets the bill last after the House. The lower house has passed it, and the upper house tends to pass it, and then it moves to the governor for assent.
Yep.
But as we've seen recently, sometimes a bill can go diagonal to the to the governor when you have something struck down, passed in the House, struck down in the Senate. And the Senate can only veto a bill for
12 months. Yeah,
exactly.
One time. And it's interesting, isn't it? If you were to ask someone, hey, we've got the House of Parliament and we've got the Senate, which is the more important parliamentary body, you might find a lot of people would say, oh, it's the House of Assembly, right? They would say the House of Assembly is the bigger body. It's where things start. It's more MPs, et cetera. But when you have a situation like we have right now, where so many of the MPs are government MPs and so few of the MPs are opposition MPs, what that actually means is that the Senate becomes incredibly important for the legislative process. Because in the Senate, as you know, you were former Senator Dwayne Robinson here, we have 5 government senators.
Correct.
And then we have 3 opposition senators. And then we have 3 independent senators appointed by the governor. So that's, if there's a bill that's particularly objectionable, right, you can see the independents and the opposition, the 6 of them, can get together and they can overrule the government. They can say no. And as you pointed out, that no isn't a no forever. It's a delay no. It's a think again no. It's a hang on, wait a second. Is this really a good idea? No. I think of my kids, right? And the kids say, hey, can we do something? And sometimes instead of saying yes or no, I say, we'll see, right?
Yes.
They figured out now we'll see probably means no. But I mean, that's the function the Senate is doing, right? It's saying, hang on, take a minute, slow down. Let's think about this. Is this really the best way forward? And so the Senate's power there, if you get a combined effort, and let's not forget, of course, that sometimes government senators don't vote with their own party. Although that's pretty rare.
Very rare.
In these days of a PLP government, it's very rare to have an independent senator who says, or a government senator who says, I'm not going to vote. But it did happen. Kim Wilkerson, I believe, was a PLP senator who voted against a PLP bill. And that was the end of her being a senator, I think. But
but I mean, right now we're seeing the tail end of that process in the beginning because, as you know, recently corporation lost the legal battle, and now the corporation of Hamilton will become a Quango along with the other municipality in St. George's. As you recall, I was the senator that on that team that sent that bill back.
I remember. It was as close to dramatic as you get in Parliament, really, because I don't think the PLP was contemplating that they were going to lose that. And I think that they thought they could put sufficient pressure on the independent senators to support them, and all 3 independent senators blocked that bill. That was some time ago. Was that 2019? I'm trying to remember when that vote was. Yeah. But it does show the importance. And, perhaps I would say as a member of the OBA, as an MP for the OBA, that's a good thing. But I think even if I'm being objective, like take off my OBA hat and sort of put it over there, is it a good thing to have this upper house that's more deliberative, that has an opportunity to perhaps to quell the passion of the moment and look at something and really get into the detail of it And, that is a function that the independent senators provide in the Senate. I mean, they bring a certain level of expertise. The president, Madam President, for example, extremely detailed knowledge of the healthcare sector. The new senator, Senator John White, he's been in insurance for decades. So, I mean, Bermuda is a prominent, if not the prominent, world-leading center for insurance and reinsurance. So to have a senator, independent senator there who brings such learning and knowledge on insurance is a great asset. And Michelle Simmons, formerly, I'm not sure the correct term, was she the headmistress of Barclay? I don't think it is. I think it's the principal or the president.
Well, I haven't seen the weird, so
Okay,
come on.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. MP Famous is probably listening to us, gritting his teeth about things I'm saying. Maybe he'll call in and tell me the correct title for her when she was at Barclay.
Okay, and we'll be right back after our next break with MP Scott Perman.
Thanks.
Where can you find the widest selection of fine home furnishings with easy parking and flexible in-house financing? It's all here at Furniture Walk. We offer all the top brands under one roof. Come and experience our wide selection and warm, friendly customer service. We'll help you find the perfect fit for your individual style for any room in your home. Our mattress gallery is stocked with the finest beds from Stearns & Foster, Tempur-Pedic, and Therapeutic. Have a walk through and sample our entire selection of the most comfortable beds in the business. We're conveniently located at 12 Harvey Road, Paget. Come in and let our friendly staff help you find that perfect piece for your home. All at Furniture Walk, furnishing Bermuda's homes for over 30 years. Call 292-5209 or visit us at FurnitureWalk.com.
Most of us identify pasta with the joys of Italian food, the most popular cuisine on the planet. After all, pasta is the staple food of Italy, where hundreds of varieties are enjoyed daily. While traveling in the Far East, the founder of the Explore Cuisine company was surprised and impressed by the variety of exotic pastas he found, sampled, and enjoyed there, and resolved to bring this knowledge back to enrich the cuisine of the West. This month, we're featuring delicious Explore Cuisine organic mung bean fettuccine and black bean spaghetti. Lindo, why go anyplace else?
Now back to Motion to Adjourn with MP Chris Famous and Dwayne Robinson.
And we're back to Motion to Adjourn, and we are speaking with MP Scott Perman. And I believe we have been joined by my co-host, MP Chris Famous. How are you?
Good afternoon to the people of Bermuda. Good afternoon, Brother Dawn, Brother Dwayne, and Brother Scott.
Good day, good day.
Welcome.
Well, hello, MP Famous. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
It's not my show, it's the people's show.
There we go.
How you doing?
I'm doing very well. Where are you calling us from, MP Famous?
I'm calling from my job.
Okay.
I'm on a 5-minute break, so I figured I may utilize that time to address some issues.
Quite right, too. So we were talking about legislative process. What have I said so far that has sparked you up?
No, there's 90% of what you said is quite fine. You explain it to the people what the process is, and a lot of times people don't understand, or in some cases don't really care about a process. They just care about the end result. Mm-hmm. Is this legislation going to work for me or work against me?
That's true. I think that's true.
Most people are not into the granular things that those of us who sit up in Parliament for 10 or 12 hours are into.
Correct.
So, MP Famous, are you going to vote in support of my bill, I hope?
Good question.
You lobbying me?
I'm sorry? Am I lobbying? I'm lobbying.
Lobbying me?
Hey, listen, you know what? When you got 6 MPs out of 36, you'll take all the support you can get, right?
Take one more.
Yeah. You can't lose, right?
Yeah.
We take one more.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, as I said, very good. I appreciate that you came in to explain to the people, because, as Dwayne said, the role of this show isn't confrontational, right? Although the name may suggest that. But the role of this show is to inform the people of various different things, politics being just a slice of it, because the majority of subject matters that we have on this show is not even political, to be quite ironic. But here's the thing. You made a comment that the only time I speak is in motion to adjourn.
Well, I'm not saying the only time. I just think if you think about when we hear from you in the House, it is most often at motion to adjourn. It's sort of your forte, MP Famous. But that's a compliment rather than a criticism, I would suggest.
Okay, so let's just explain something here, right? There are 12 ministers, and any given day, at least 3 or 4 bills are being presented. Correct?
Yeah.
It varies. Sometimes you got early, sometimes you got a little bit. In the PLP system, we have what we call a PPS, which is basically someone who assists the understudy to the minister, if you want to say that.
Is it stand for Principal Private Secretary, I think. Is that what it stands for?
Right. Same thing as in the UK.
Yeah.
I don't want people to think we're inventing things on our end. So that person, if for example, the Minister of, I don't know, Education is speaking on a bill, presenting a bill, right? Then his PPS is going to be the first one to speak up. Then there might be somebody else who speaks on it as well, right? There are certain things that each, and 1 minute.
I think that's on your end, MP Famous. I'm not sure.
No, that's me.
Okay, cool.
There are certain things that each MP kind of specialize in, right? I'm not going to sit up and talk on something that's a legislative matter because I don't specialize in that. And then there's things that some MPs don't speak on that need to be speaking on. That I'm that guy, right? Because let's remember, MP Perman, before I hang up, that all politics is local, right? And if you're not speaking on subjects that are relevant to the population, then you yourself become irrelevant, and that's what reflects in polls.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you, MP Famous. Where I think I might add to your point is that, just as there are 12 ministers of the government in Parliament, so too are they 14 PLP backbenchers. And, when you've got something important to the Bermudian people that comes through the House, you want to know where your MP stands. And sometimes I think there is a perception, right or wrong, and you may not feel it's fair, that sometimes the 14 PLP backbenchers don't speak up very much.
Okay, so let's look at it logistically, right? If a minister brings a bill, that is probably going to talk for, I don't know, half an hour, right? Let's just use half an hour as then his PPS is going to speak. That PPS has got 20 minutes. Then someone else is going to speak. So now we're going past that hour. So if 14 backbenchers spoke on every bill presented, how much time would that take, sir?
Well, it's not how much time it's supposed to take. It's how much time does the law that we're trying to pass deserve, right?
No.
How much scrutiny does it need from?
Okay. If you pass a law to say, I want to make all wheels run, and if you give the reasoning why a round wheel is a good wheel, how many times can 14 people say the same thing?
Well, the thing is the 14 people may not say the same thing, right? I mean, people may have differences of opinions, as we saw.
Here we start with let's sow the seeds of, I don't know, discontent, right?
I don't think that's fair.
Hold on.
That's fair.
MPs are free to get up and speak whenever they want.
Correct. As long as they're called upon by the speaker, they're free to speak.
Hold on. If somebody says, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to speak on this subject, right? If they have a difference of opinion, then they voice it. You've had people voice differences of opinion on cannabis. You've had just people voice differences of opinion on quarantine, correct?
You have. You had MP, indeed Deputy Speaker Derek Burgess expressed concern.
Just now.
Yeah, exactly. You did have that. You did have that.
Right.
Yeah.
So my point being is if a minister brings a bill, or when a minister brings a bill, and 3 or 4 people on one side and undoubtedly 2 or 3 people on your side are going to speak, how many people can speak? How many things can you speak to on the same topic?
Well, in theory, all 36 MPs are entitled to speak on every topic.
No, I didn't say they can't speak, but I'm saying how many times somebody's going to get up and not say the same thing the other 2 or 3 people have said already.
Well, I think you'd agree with me that it really depends on the importance of the particular bill, right? If the bill is pretty perfunctory, what tends to happen is that both the government and the opposition agree with it, and it passes unanimously. And I think a lot of people listening out there may not appreciate how often legislation goes through both our House of Assembly and our Senate and passes with both sides and gets approved. Where it differs, I think, is on slightly more contentious or local. You said all politics is local, right? Politics that matters more to the local. Cannabis is a great example. There are others, right? We didn't really hear much from the PLP bench on cannabis. We heard from Minister.
Did we not speak on it last year?
I don't know. Was that last year?
Okay. Let's not play naive.
I'm not playing naive.
You had a person speak on it last year when it passed through the lower house. It's the exact same bill, correct?
Unfortunately so. Yes, it was.
Okay. So if
1 year later, no changes.
If someone spoke on it last year, it's the exact same bill, exact same clause, exact same everything. What are they going to say this year that they didn't say last year?
Well, I think, what they're going to do is they're going to do what they're supposed to do, which is to comment in the House on their feelings about the rightness or wrongness of a particular piece of legislation. Hopefully they're going to speak authentically and from the heart. And hopefully they're going to make either good points in favor, if they're in favor, or they're going to make good points against, if they're against. I mean, that's what democracy is all about, right?
Okay. All right. So everybody on your side is completely on the same page when it comes to cannabis?
No, I didn't say that at all. I'm not sure. I think if you took all...
I'm asking a question. Is everyone on your side completely against cannabis the way you are?
No, I think what you saw on Friday in the House, MP Famous, was, the 6 OBA MPs all being on the same team and all being against a PLP bill that sadly hadn't changed one jot since last year when it got defeated in the Senate and when the Bermudian people expressed their concerns about it. Anyway, you as the host of the show had told me that this was not supposed to be contentious. I'm happy to debate the points with you, but
we're having a discussion.
Sure,
we're having a discussion.
I think it's fair to say I was disappointed not to have heard from more PLP members whether or not they thought this was a good bill. When 10 people don't bother to vote, obviously two of them.
Let's stop right there. Not all 10 people were online for various different reasons.
Well, okay.
So if all 36 were online and 10 of this 36 or however many of this 36 that just didn't vote, then you have a valid point.
Well, I think my point is that if 10 people didn't vote in favor of the PLP cannabis bill, they might as MPs have spoken out and told us why.
Again, hold on.
We lost him. Well, he's on hold. The listeners are on hold.
The 5-minute break, someone say, hey.
Oh, he'll come back in a minute. But we were about to get on to the Senate. We were talking about the Senate.
Yeah, well, I think we're going to let him go forward.
He's back. You're back.
But anyway, what you and others, let me not even say who the others are, attempting to paint a narrative, which is kind of false, but be that as it may, the bill passed. Right?
Sorry, how's it a false narrative to say that those who didn't vote should have expressed the reasons why they didn't vote?
You said 10 people abstained. 10 people were, half of those people weren't even online to abstain.
I didn't. They abstained. It's different to say abstained and did not vote. I believe I said did not vote. To actually abstain is to, exercise your mind and decide you're positively not going to vote. I think one MP from the PLP side, MP Wayne Keynes, has said that he abstained, and that's why he did not cast his vote. But I'm not sure we've heard from the others as to why they didn't vote. We've heard from you, sir. Obviously, you had a reason. But my point wasn't necessarily why you didn't vote. My point was, if people were going to not vote, one might have expected them to stand up in Parliament and explain their thinking. And it was a disappointment to me that they didn't do so.
How are they going to say they're not going to vote if they're not even online?
Well, I don't know. I saw some of their smiling faces. Some of them were online. Mm-hmm. You saw some of it. Well, you weren't there, I guess. Yes.
You're looking for something that's not there. But be that as it may, that's the job of the opposition. But Dwayne, I'm happy you have a guest in studio. and you should bring more guests because then the people can hear more debate.
Well, I hope MP Famous next time, if you invite me back, if I'm allowed back, you'll be here with me and we can have a chat about whatever you like.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
The door's always open every Thursday.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great evening.
And you, MP Famous. Thank you very much.
Cool.
Well, on that note, I think we'll take our last break and then we'll wrap up after that. Thank you so much.
Bring the whole family out to spend Good Friday at the Willowbank Resort. Enjoy a fun Easter egg hunt, hot cross buns, and kite flying. Purchase a day pass for only $25 and enjoy the beach, pool, and hotel facilities. On Sunday, April 17th, join us for a delicious Easter Sunday brunch with all the trimmings. Call 234-1616 to book reservations or email reservations@willowbank.pm. Come and celebrate your Easter at the Willowbank Resort.
Now back to Motion to Adjourn with MP Chris Famous and Dwayne Robinson.
And we're back to Motion to Adjourn. And as you saw, the two MPs brought the house to our show.
There we go. There we go.
So you got a sneak peek of what it might be like in the lower house.
No, we're not as bad as that.
So just hand it over as we want to, give you the opportunity to wrap up. Just your last few words to the Bermudian public on this Equality Act and, any other things that you might want to say.
Well, let me start off with this. I mean, I think, politics and politicians, sometimes the general public get rather irritated with us, right? But we're there to try to pass or review the laws that apply to everyone's daily lives. And so I guess what I would say to any of those listening is, pay attention, right? Inform yourself because, you can listen to what MP Famous says or what I say, but unless you inform yourself, you're not going to really be able to make a decision as to, who might have the better argument. And in terms of the legislation, the Equality Act, hopefully the Equality Act, currently the Equality Bill, because it doesn't become an act unless it gets passed. But there it is. It's on the parliamentary website, www.parliament.bm. And I would invite people to take a look at it. And hopefully it's got a few ideas in there which will help to address this is very significant and important issue in Bermuda, which is the differential in equality by gender, by race, and by other protected acts. So take a look at it. Whether 6 opposition MPs can get a bill passed through Parliament, it's going to be an uphill struggle probably, but it would be nice to think that people would put aside partisan politics, would look at whether this is a good bill for Bermuda, whether this will improve Bermudians' lives. And that's what we're trying to do by introducing bills like this, like the reduction and elimination of single-use plastics, which we provided to the government as part of their consultation process. And hopefully there will be more. I mean, they're not easy to pull together. You got to be careful. You got to really, do some effort, think about it. But what we're just trying to do is do our jobs as politicians and parliamentarians and try and bring better laws to the people of Bermuda that are laws that people want, right?
That's right.
All right. Well, thanks for having me on the show.
Yes, thank you. And, I want to appreciate that you gave the time to us to go through the process of an opposition bill. And, as I said earlier in this show, we may get, because it's been times that me and Famous have gotten spicy on her too. And I think that it's good that we have that healthy debate and that we can go back to, coexisting and being cordial with one another, as this show is kind of the dream that a lot of us bipartisan MPs, senators, former senators have, which is to show collaboration across aisle, that you can have these debates and get the constructive part out of it and come back and do the people's business. So I appreciate you for showing up.
Thank you.
Hopefully we get to have you again.
It's been good to be part of the discussion. And as you say, if we can talk about the problems that we're facing and we can try and find common ground for solutions, we might just solve some of the problems. Not all of them, I accept. I mean, we're always going to have problems. But, there are some problems that are fixable if we could just put our mind to it and work together.
Yes, sir. Well, on that note, Dawn, I think I'm going to hit the gavel.
All right.
And Motion to Adjourn will be adjourned until next Thursday.
And you have been listening to Motion to Adjourn with MP Chris Famous and Dwayne Robinson.
You're locked to Power 95, Bermuda's big station at 94.9 FM, a Bermuda Broadcasting Company station. Always first with the newest jam. Always first to play. Always hip-hop. Always old school. Always reggae. Always number one. Bermuda's big station. 94.9 FM. Power 95.